Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Adulting 101 Academy, where I'm here to help you and myself learn what it means to be an adult. And even though I'm not, an 18, 19-year-old, I'm still learning. There's still a lot of things that I am trying to figure out, and I'm here to help you figure out, make it a lot easier for you guys. If I make mistakes, figure out the right way to do it, I'm going to share it with you guys. But there are some things I want to kind of touch on now. The last episode that I did was focused around building a resume. We know that having a job is important. It's something that you have to do as an adult to pay the bills. But this one's going to be a little bit different, but yet it's still in my wheelhouse in terms of jobs and experience that I have. So the stuff I'm going to share, it's very high level stuff today, but it is important. But before we do that, guys, please make sure that you like the video, that you subscribe to the channel. This is a brand new channel, and really is I'm just here to help people learn. And if you can like, subscribe, comment, share with other individuals who might benefit from this information, that helps me out and it helps other people out as well. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. And let's jump right into today's topic, which is preparing for natural disaster emergencies. Now, as I mentioned, this is kind of in my wheelhouse, in a way. Um, my job in the state of North Dakota is working in the Emergency Preparedness and Response Division of Health and Human Services. So I am the mass care coordinator. I am under an area that's called ESF6, Essential Function 6. I think there's 15 essential functions at the federal level. And so I'm in ESF6. And you'll hear me mention that probably a few times in this one, as well as future videos and that type of stuff. But with that, it is my responsibility to help individuals in emergency situations, whether that be power outages, blizzards, tornadoes. So my area focuses on sheltering or feeding of large groups of people. It also entails like donations management, things like that. But along with my ESF6, my team that I work with does ESF8, which is the health side of things. So helping hospitals if there is like a pandemic, like we had a couple years ago, or if there's like a shortage of staffing, nurses, that type of stuff. My department, the group that I'm a part of, can help find other people to come fill that gap. We also have the ability to set up medical shelters and actually MMUs, which is a mobile medical unit, which is essentially a small hospital in a trailer. We can fit 8 beds that have like ventilators and a lot of cool gear in there. So we have a lot of different things that we can use and things that we have used in the past. But once again, my area is the ESF6, which is mass care, but it really kind of overlaps with a lot of other areas. So as I'm discussing some of the different natural disasters, they are things that I'm trained on, I know about. And like I said, this isn't going to be a real detailed dive into things you can do for an emergency, but it is important things that you need to do and steps you need to take. So let's jump right into this right off the bat. One of the first things, steps you need to take before any emergency. First thing is have non-perishable food and water available to you. This can be granola bars. It can be bottles of water that you bought at Costco or Walmart. It can be things like that. You really want to focus on food that doesn't need to be cooked necessarily and doesn't need to be kept cool like in a refrigerator or a freezer. If you're in an emergency, there's a good chance that your power is going to be out. So your fridge, your freezer, not going to work. Your stove and oven, your microwave, also not going to work. So you want to have food that you can grab and eat right then and there. Like I said, granola bars are a great one. There's a lot of emergency food things that you can get as well. Even things like bread and peanut butter. That's at least something that can help you get through the first couple days. Because I will tell you guys right now that it's going to take a few days before resources get to an emergency. Even if we know something is happening, like whether it be a hurricane or rainfall that leads to flooding or things like that, we know for the most part those are going to happen ahead of time, but you can't move resources there because they could be damaged and destroyed as well. So you have to wait really until after the emergency is complete before you can send stuff in. And right now, as I'm speaking, the aftermath of the hurricane down south, Helene, is just devastating multiple states. North Carolina is having troubles moving food or supplies or even people because a lot of roads are gone. And so that is something that, you got to take into consideration as you're going along, that if you don't have food and water for yourself, it might be a time before you actually get a chance to get resources brought in by the government. So have stuff on your own. They always say have 3 days worth of stuff. I'd encourage you to have a week for you and your family, and maybe even some extra for other people. But this is something we'll talk about in another video is, how much stuff to prepare and to have at your house, in your car. I'll touch on that a little bit today. In fact, the very next thing is kind of talking about having gas in your car. We'll talk about other stuff to have in your car later on. But it is important to be prepared because it's going to be time, and that could be days, maybe even a week before resources get to you, depending on how big the emergency is. So, second thing, have gas in your vehicle. I recommend that you always have a half a tank or higher. Now, I know there are a lot of people in this country, especially with the rising prices of gas, that's difficult. You are trying to survive to your next paycheck, so then you'll get gas then. But if you are able to keep at least a half a tank in your gas tank at all times, that is a good situation. So that way, if an emergency does come and you've got to get out of wherever you live and get away 100 miles, 200 miles, you have enough gas to be able to do that. Because you know that when a hurricane's coming or other things, those gas lines are going to be so long that you may not even get to the gas station because of how long it takes. So have gas in your vehicle, half a tank or higher if you can. The next thing you do before any emergency is talk with your family about where you're going to meet, depending on where you guys are at during the day. Now, my family, I work on the south side of town. My wife works on the west side. My daughters go to school on more of the east, north side of the town. So we're actually pretty spread out. Now, granted, the city we're in is not huge. I can get across town in 10 minutes, 15 if the traffic's bad. So not like we're super far away. In fact, if I had to, from where I work, I could grab my bag and walk home in probably an hour and a half, just because there's some good hills there I gotta walk through. But I could get home. I could do it. And my youngest daughter, goes to school 4 houses from, we only live 4 houses from the school, so she can get home. And my oldest daughter, she could get home too if she had to. But the biggest thing is for everyone to know where everyone is and where to meet. I've talked with my oldest daughter that if something does happen and she has to get out, that I can meet her at the house. Or my wife knows that she's going to come and take care of my youngest daughter while I go get my oldest daughter, and then we meet here if we have to. So we have different discussions, different things we kind of know about. But it's also kind of the realization that what if we're farther away? What if one of us is out of town? So we need to make sure we have these plans set up ahead of time. And, it may seem a little extreme, but at the same time, you know, if you know where people are and something goes wrong, it's easier to find them, easier to help them, that type of stuff. So please be aware of that. Have plans ahead of time. Know where you work, where your kids go to school, where your spouse works, and where a meeting place would be. And make sure that meeting place is somewhere safe. The fourth thing is have a tote of supplies in your vehicle. It doesn't have to be a huge, humongous tote. It doesn't even need to be expensive supplies. One of the key things that I have in the tote in both my vehicle and my wife's vehicle is socks. You know, Clean, dry socks that we can put on if we need to. I usually have a pair of boots in the back of my vehicle as well, just because I tend to wear slip-ons a lot, like just nice, relaxed shoes. I work in an office, and so I want my feet to be relaxed. So I usually have boots in the back of my vehicle just so I can grab it and put them on if I need to. Also helps if we decide to go somewhere after work, I can have good shoes to tie and put on. But things like that, you want to have water in the back of your vehicle. I'd recommend getting a cooler and just filling it with water bottles. And that way they're not being hit by the sun, which makes them really hot. During the winter time, if you're up in a very cold area, the cooler can actually keep them from freezing as fast. So that's a benefit. So have a tote with supplies. And that really kind of depends on where you live, is what you're going to put in there. People who live in Arizona are not going to put the same stuff in the tote as someone like myself who lives in North Dakota. In North Dakota, my tote has the hot hands stuff. I've got gloves. I've got a shovel to shovel out snow. Because we get snow, we could get snow 6 months of the year, if not 7 months of the year. So where you live depends on what you're going to have in there. Like I said, if you live in Arizona, your tote might have a lot of sunscreen or hats you can put on or light coverings, stuff like that. Blankets are great to have in there. So depending on where you're at, is what you're going to have in your tote. And once again, we'll do another video on that in the future to really break down things that you should put in there and just different ideas. And once again, it doesn't have to be big, expensive stuff, but anything you have in there could be a resource to help you in times of emergencies. So, the very first natural disaster I want to talk about is hurricanes. Now, if you live in a hurricane area, a lot of the stuff you're going to know, but let's be honest, a lot of people are moving around the country, finding new places. I live in North Dakota, but I'm not from North Dakota. I'm from a state that doesn't get 100 inches of snow. North Dakota, a year and a half ago, got 100 inches of snow where I live, and that's a lot of snow. And I've never experienced that before. So I had to learn on the fly. And I wish someone would kind of explain things to me a little bit further ahead of time. There were some things I knew, but not everything. So this information is for those who um, maybe haven't had to be the one in charge during a hurricane. Maybe you had parents who were in charge, or maybe you've moved to an area and are realizing, hey, this is hurricane area. So first thing in a hurricane area, you need to prepare to evacuate 1 or 2 days before the hurricane hits landfall. Now, this isn't always the case, and this isn't always for every area that's going to be hit, because some areas won't get hit as bad as others. But if you are in the path of the hurricane, don't stay there. Don't stay. Get out, go find a place that's safe. And what I mean safe is make sure you go to a place that has a higher elevation because there's going to be flooding. Go to a place that is secure. That you can be there. That might be a motel. It might be, another state. I know for Hurricane Helene, they were telling people that, hey, you don't have to go hours away. Just go maybe 50 miles away, more inland, which was great, except they realized that if you're in, northern Florida and you're trying to get away from the coast a little bit, that puts you into Georgia, gets you closer to South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee up in that direction. Obviously, those are further than an hour away, but they all flooded. They all had massive damage that's going to take probably years to really fix. So be smart about where you go to. But when you do evacuate, make sure you have bags ready to go. Have clothing and toiletries ready to go. If you have medications, have those ready to go, because you're not going to get those refilled. You're not going to have stuff. You're not going to have laundry. Odds are power's going to go out, that type of stuff. So have a bag ready with toiletries, clothes that you can literally just grab for each person in your family, throw them in the vehicle and go. That is the best thing to do. Next thing, if you are in a hurricane area, make sure you have plywood and sandbags so you can, sandbag, your doors, and you can plywood across your windows to help protect your house and stuff. So, something that I would encourage you to do. Once again, if you're directly in the line of the hurricane, evacuate. Now, you can put plywood up first. If you're maybe on the edge of the hurricane where it's going to still blow, still going to get wet, that type of stuff, and you're not, being asked to evacuate, plywood's always a little bit more security, a little more protection for your home. So I'd recommend you have that ahead of time. Don't wait till the week of a hurricane. There's nothing going to be there. Get it months ahead of time, put it in your garage, store it, pull it out when you need it, take it off when you're done, put it back in your garage. And I mentioned have supplies in your vehicle, blankets, food, water, a radio, a battery operated radio or a hand crank radio. Because if power goes out or you run out of gas in your car, you need to have something to be able to hear what's going on. And then charge all your batteries. So if you have computers and you have cell phones, make sure everything's charged as best you can, especially if power banks. Power banks are great to help keep your phone going. Get those things all charged and ready to go to take with you. Next one is flooding. This kind of goes along with hurricanes, but at the same time, flooding happens all across the U.S. Flash flooding happens. I know, like I said, I live in North Dakota. We have flooding here because we're very flat. So any kind of raise in the river level can cause a lot of flooding. Washington State, where I'm born and raised, has a lot of flooding. I've seen some massive floods there. Obviously, Florida and Louisiana, Texas, when the hurricanes hit, there's flooding there. So the biggest thing with that is evacuate to higher ground and make sure that where you're evacuating to doesn't have the potential risk of landslides. If you're going to an area that it's very loose rock, very gravelly, very hill, could have slides, avoid that area because that is going to be the worst. That's going to be the most dangerous thing. Um, find a place that you can get to that's away from the water, that's just safe. And don't think that, hey, I'm just going to go down the road and be fine. Um, th This hurricane, once again, is a perfect example that, you know, a lot of people have passed away, and no doubt partially because of the flooding, they just weren't able to get out. A lot of people had to be rescued from roofs. They were on the roof of their house, the roof of their barn. Helicopters had to go get them out of there. And for, a number of people, they tried to escape to the roof, and then the water was too high and it took them away. And so, if you know flooding's going to happen, and we usually have a warning to some extent, we know that there's flash flood risks or flooding risks and warnings. Don't don't sit back and think, oh, no big deal, I'll be fine. Get out, get out. Next thing is never drive or walk through moving water. This drives me nuts when I see videos of people trying to drive through what they think is shallow water. And the reality is it's a death trap. It will pick up your car and move it, and you're stuck. And once you're stuck, there's no getting out unless you get lucky and you break a window and try and climb out. Then all of a sudden you're in raging water, with no life vest, no floating, no boat. You're in trouble. So don't drive through moving water. Even if you think it's shallow and only a couple inches, it doesn't take a lot to get a car moving. And if you're in a bad spot on a road where the car gets moved and puts you on the edge or, over the road, that's even worse. But one thing with flooding is, and same with hurricanes, check weather and emergency alerts to stay up to date on events. There is information that goes out nonstop. You can go to weather.com, you can find the Weather Channel. Local news and radio usually is pretty constant, updating people on things. So listen to it. Don't ignore it. Don't wait till the last minute. Get out, get away, get safe. Okay. Next one is wildfires, and this one actually happens, especially in those hotter areas. You got Northern California gets hit all the time. Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Canada has been hit a lot, with wildfires. And this is the same thing as kind of what I said earlier. Evacuate as early as possible. Don't wait till that last day. I have actually, in my trainings for my job, heard stories of people having to be lifted downstairs of an apartment building as the fire engulfed the apartment building. Like they couldn't get out. There was some, um, access and some different disabilities there that played into that. But there's a lot of people who wait too long. And then when they try and get out, they realize they're surrounded by the fire. Once you're surrounded by the fire, there's no getting out. It's impossible, unless you get lucky. Fire is dangerous. If wildfires are in your area, get out because life comes before property always. So that's something I want you guys to always remember. You can always replace a house, even if you don't have insurance. Even if you know that, hey, if my house is destroyed, I'm going to lose everything. If you're still alive, you didn't lose everything. So life comes first. But have your bags packed ahead of time. Once again, that grab and go idea. Have backpacks with stuff that you can just grab and go. I know I've got a backpack that has, um, socks of mine. It's got a t-shirt and a little sweatshirt that I never wear. I never wear the sweatshirt, don't wear the t-shirt. The socks are, still there, still perfect, brand new. But I can grab that bag and I can go. And I can grab the bags for my family and we can go. And we've got at least enough to be okay for a few days. So have bags ready. You can go buy a cheap Walmart bag. Heck, it doesn't have to be a backpack. It can be just a whatever little duffel bag you have, as long as you can carry it, you know, have a bag that you can grab and go. One thing with wildfires, if you do live in an area that is potentially a wildfire area is make sure you clear anything combustible around your house ahead of time. Now, don't wait till the fire is burning to do this. This is a spring cleaning type of thing. Hey, look at the bushes are overgrown, need to cut them back. Get all that cut branches, get them off to the dump, get them away from your house. Make sure, bushes aren't up against your house. Make sure, you know, dead logs and all those different things are cleared out and as far away from your house as possible. Things like that can actually help protect your house. In fact, there's even some plants and trees that are more resistant to wildfires that you can plant around your house to actually help protect your house a little bit. Now, once again, a major raging fire, a tree here, a tree there is not going to help you. But if you're able to protect your house by have stuff spreading out far enough away from your house, things that could burn, it could be the difference between your house going up in flames or kind of being surrounded and avoided. So, that's once again that is a spring cleaning type of thing. Clear it out ahead of time before the wildfires start. Don't wait till the day of. It's too late. Evacuate. Now, this one, like I mentioned, I live in North Dakota. I've experienced a few blizzards already in the few years I've lived here. And there really isn't an evacuation for this. Because usually when the blizzards hit, it's not just one city, it's not just one state, it's a whole region. So you really can't evacuate. In fact, I would tell you not to evacuate for the most part because the last thing you want to do is get caught in your car in a blizzard. That is the worst situation you can be. So stay home. Prepare for a loss of power, though. Do expect that. Pretty much every blizzard we go into, we just pretty much expect to lose power. I think I've only lost power at my house once for like a few hours. Wasn't even a big deal. I think we were asleep for most of it. So, but have a generator if you can afford a generator, whether that be a solar generator or a gas power generator, have one. Get it ready. Get your gas ready for it. That's always nice to have. I mean, worst case scenario, um, power goes out, you can turn that on, keep your fridge going, turn your heaters on, at least have something going on. Best case scenario, your power never goes out and you're out a few gallons of gas because it went bad after a year. Oh well, that's fine. Yeah, that's not a big deal. But do make sure that you have blankets, warm clothing. If you have portable heaters, I know there's a lot of great ones that are propane that actually can be used indoors. I think the Mr. Buddy heaters are really good about that. Don't quote me on that. I do own one or two. I haven't had to use them yet, but I've seen some people test them and do CO2 monitoring with that, and they work indoors. In fact, I think they say even some of them are actually indoor heaters. So check on that on your own. Later on, maybe I'll do some reviews and show you guys some of the stuff that I have. One thing you can do though during a blizzard is put up plastic over your windows to hold on the heat. So just get some painter's tape and some painter's plastic, spread it across your window, tape it around the edges, and that will help insulate your house a little bit, especially if you only have like single pane windows that let that cold air in. Plastic works great. It's an easy thing to put up and help, keep in the heat. If you have gaps in your door, like you lets air in, put a towel down in the gap. Do something to help block the cold air from coming in. Every little bit of keeping that heat in is good. I know that could be, a challenging if you have a larger house. But one of the things you want to do is try and make sure your family moves into one area of the house and stays there. One, because then you have people with body heat. You don't have to, protect as much of the house. So maybe have a room that you can drop some plastic, just lightly drop it around the doors. That way you can have a little bit more protection. Maybe even set up a tent. If you have enough room, set up a tent so that way you can kind of be in there. Have food that doesn't need to be cooked. We talked about this earlier. Have things that you can just go and be ready to eat right off the bat. You know, Crackers and canned meat. Like if you like one of the things that I enjoy, I love canned salmon. And so I can just open up one of those and have some crackers. And if the fridge hasn't been off for too long, I pull out some cheese and cut some cheese. And it's a simple thing, but it works. And you can do that. And once again, if your power's out and your fridge hasn't been able to run for a few hours, you got to eat that food probably at some point anyways. So do that. Fruit is a great thing to have for the short term. But once again, for the long term, not so much. But have some canned goods, have some granola bars, have some things to help you get through a few days at least. And one of the good things about a blizzard is If you do have stuff in your freezer and there's a blizzard outside, put it in a cooler, put the cooler outside. It will stay cool for you. And then once again for blizzards, make sure your phones are charged, make sure your power banks are charged, computers are charged. I recommend this really for a different reason than communication. I recommend this so download some movies onto your phones, your tablets, your computers, so that way you can watch movies as long as everything's still charged, just so you're not so bored. Have board games too, candles, so you can play. So have candles, have board games, have things like that. Do be careful with candles. Candles start fires, obviously, so be aware of that. The last thing that is really the one natural disaster you can't truly prepare for, and that's earthquakes. Now, you can prepare a little bit in terms of having stuff ready, but we don't know when it's coming. Blizzards, I know when the storm is coming. Hurricanes, we know when that's coming. Flooding, for the most part, we kind of understand, hey, we know that's coming. Wildfires, we usually can see that ahead of time as well. Maybe not as early, but we can see that. Earthquakes are here it is. Hope you're ready type of idea. So, once again, this is a big thing. Know where your family will meet at if they're not at home. Now, if your whole family's at home and the earthquake hits, you know where everybody's at. Get them to safety right off the bat. If you're at work, kids at school, spouse at work, maybe your parents are at home or at work somewhere else, know where everybody's going to meet. Now, for me, once again, I live in North Dakota. My family doesn't live in North Dakota. My parents, my sisters, stuff like that. Um, so for me, I don't have to worry about knowing where all my extended family is. I just need to know where my wife and daughters are. That's my focus, because that's all we got here in Bismarck. But if I were still in Washington, then there'd be my family, there'd be my parents, there'd be my sister, there'd be my wife's cousins and stuff like that. So it'd be a lot more people to kind of track. So think about that ahead of time. Who do you need to track and know where they're at? You know, it might just be more than just your immediate family. It might be an extended family too. So know and talk to people. Even if they think it's weird or funny, talk with them. If they don't want to talk with you, well, talk with those who do. If you do have, this is actually something good for a lot of different emergencies. Have an out of town point of contact. So if something happens in your state, if you have another family member who lives in another state, another area, have them be the point of contact that everybody can call out to. Because their phone lines aren't going to go down. They're still going to be okay. They're still going to have internet and everything. So make them the point of contact. So you can call them and say, hey, I'm okay. I'm here. If anybody else calls you, tell them where I'm at. And so that gives you a point of contact because we know that cell phones are going to be tough when everybody's trying to call. Different towers might be down. So have an out of town contact that can help direct people to each other. I also recommend that once again, have a small stockpile of your needed items outside your house, like in a vehicle. So medications, if you have medications that you have to take, life-threatening medication, if you don't take them, have some in more than just your house. Because if something happens to your house and you can't get to your medications, it might be days before you can get more. So have some in another spot. Water is a big thing. Clothing, fire extinguishers is a huge thing. Going back to that blizzard, if you're lighting candles, you better have a fire extinguisher. Okay. Just for safety. Earthquake, though, if you live in an earthquake prone area, you live in California, Oregon, even Washington, you need to have a fire extinguisher because fires can erupt really easily during earthquakes as things fall, things break, that type of stuff. So, you know, so it's one of those things that I want you guys to understand the importance of being prepared. As someone who works in emergency preparedness and response, the people who aren't prepared are usually who we're trying to rescue. And we can't always get there in time. We just can't because there's going to be a lot of people at risk and in danger. But the more prepared you are, the less of a need you'll have for me and my team and other responders like that, because you'll be able to take care of yourself until the big help gets there. And then you can move forward and, you know, be ready. That's the biggest thing. So, guys, with that, I do want to talk about some of the additional emergency preparedness topics I have coming in the future. Emergency bags is one. Talk about their purpose, what you put in them. We'll actually go through and I'll pull apart my bag and maybe I should do video of the bag and the stuff I have. Just kind of show you guys that, hey, my stuff isn't super high end, but it's going to do the job. It's going to get us through 3 days, 4 days until more help comes and helps us move forward with that. Next thing is what to have in your home for emergencies. Having good flashlights, having good lanterns, having batteries, things like that. We'll talk about that. What things you need to have in your home, especially if you're a new homeowner, or maybe you're getting your first apartment. What are things you should have in your apartment to help protect you? We'll also talk further about what to have in your car year round. Once again, this is going to be dependent on where you live. You live in Florida, you're going to want a poncho. You live in Arizona, you want sunscreen. You live in North Dakota, you want a shovel. So different things like that, kind of think about. And then the last topic that we'll also be discussing, and Graham, there's going to be a lot of topics on this in the future, as well as things like more about searching for jobs and vacations and budgeting, all that stuff. But the last one that I kind of have working on in the near future is when to stay home and when to evacuate. Because there are times in which you want to leave. You know, wildfires, get out. Flooding, get out. Hurricanes, if you're in the eye of the storm, get out. If you're in a blizzard, stay home. It's things like that. So I want to talk about different things like that, and just kind of go through that. But guys, thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful for you. If you are someone who doesn't consider themselves a prepper, that's okay. I'm not asking anyone to become a prepper. I'm just asking you to be prepared enough so that if something happens, you are able to take care of yourself until the help gets there. And it may be a week before the help gets there. So be prepared, be ready for that. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Once again, I'm Josh. This is Adulting 101 Academy, and I'm hoping you're learning a little bit with me as we move forward in this thing called adulthood.